20, District 128 board meeting. Uh, We're going to start with the call to order and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, the flags that way.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Carol, can we have a roll call, please?
Nina Austin.
Here.
Jim Batson.
Here.
Raul Deschmuck. Doug Flegel.
Here.
Middleish Cotwall.
Here.
Wes Poland.
Here.
Julie Simpson.
Julie?
Here.
Okay, we'll note that Raul is not with us at this point in time, but we have a quorum, so we're going to move forward. We start by reviewing the agenda. We have some communication items, some student recognition, and then we'll go into invitation for public comment. We have a ESP union report, a student school board rep report from all these folks here, FOIA requests to talk about, superintendent's report, some discussion items, including proposed board meeting schedule for next year, review the board policy 2:110, a budget hearing, budget preliminary update, textbook adoption requests, PE exemption process update. We have a consent vote agenda, items that routinely are done in one vote. And then some for information, we have board comments and events, an IASB report, and a CEDAW report. Anything from CEDAW? No? Okay. And then we will have an executive session for purposes of employment of employees. So roll it back to the top, back to communications, and we have some student recognition. It looks like we have quite a few student recognitions. So this is the fun part of the board meeting always.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board. We have a number of recognitions, both from Libertyville High School and Vernon Hills High School. So we'll begin tonight with Vernon Hills High School. Going to be calling up our coaches who are going to tell us a little bit about their teams and various recognitions. Lots of competitions happening, have previously happened, and will continue to happen now throughout the end of the year. So first up, we're going to have Aaron Wellington to come on up, ask him to come up to tell us about the state competition for HOSA, which is the Health Occupations Students of America. So, Aaron, come on up. And
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us tonight. Unfortunately, a few of our team members are not going to make it. There was an accident in Libertyville tonight, so it's holding some people up, unfortunately. So let's talk about HOSA, Health Occupation Students of America. It's a national organization that's been in existence for over 35 years. It's new to LHS, though. This year was really only our second full year of competing in the competition. We were able to double our membership this year from 21 students to 45 students, which was a great accomplishment for our group, and that had a lot to do with some of our leading members of the organization. We had a number of students that tried to qualify for the state competition. HOSA in Illinois as an organization has grown significantly. The membership is up over 30% in the last 2 years. Just this year alone, there's 18 new high schools in Illinois that are competing in HOSA. So the competition has gotten a lot stiffer. Last year, there was approximately 3,000 contestants competing in events to qualify for state. This year, there was over 5,000 students that competed to try to qualify for state. We were fortunate enough to have 12 students qualify for the state competition. Unfortunately, the state competition was right before spring break this year. So we had a few team members that were unable to attend the competition, but we sent 9 students to the state competition this year, and we were very successful with the 9 students that we took. One of our students, Shagum Punia, she finished in the top 10 in family medicine physician composition. She took 8th in the state. So we were very proud of her for that. Ryan Santosh Kumar, standing right next to me, he had a big week at HOSA. So we'll be talking about him a few times. He was in the sports medicine competition. This is the second year in a row Ryan qualified for that competition, and he took 5th in the state in that competition. So that was a great accomplishment for him. And then we did have a team state championship, actually. Our biomedical debate team, which was Ryan, Hamza Alfales, and Ivy Lee, who unfortunately is not here tonight. But interesting story with that competition is that one of our students that originally qualified for state was unable to attend in that event. So they let us substitute Ivy in as an alternate in the competition, and they ended up going all the way. It was a round by round competition, and they ended up making it all the way to the championship and winning the championship. So we did have a state champion at HOSA this year, which was a great accomplishment. Like I said, Ryan's week was not over. Ryan took on the daunting task of running for HOSA executive board, and not just executive board. He ran for president. And at the closing ceremony, they announced, and Ryan is actually the 2026-2027 Illinois HOSA president. So pretty big accomplishment for Ryan. So I just wanted to take a brief moment to acknowledge our entire team, and that our HOSA organization at LHS just continues to grow, and hopefully will be even bigger next year than it was this year. Thank you for having us here tonight.
The next team that we would like to recognize is the LHS debate group, both our JV and varsity teams. And so I'd ask right now our coaches, Sarah Greenswag, Jennifer Brandt, and Kimberly Weinberg to come on up to recognize the accomplishments for LHS debate. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Greenswag. I've been coaching the debate team at LHS since I've been here, which is about 13 years at this point. And this has been the most successful year we've ever had. We are so proud of this group. We owe a huge amount to our leaders. And so I want to shout out Andy, who's been a leader for us since he started debate his sophomore year. And he has helped guide many of our newer debaters, many of whom are freshmen up here, through their first year of debate. So we had 2 state level competitions, a novice JV level, and we brought 4 novice teams, 4 JV teams. All teams compete in 5 rounds of preliminary debate. Or was it 6? 5? 5 rounds. They had to win 3 out of 5 to advance. All 4 of our novice teams advanced into the octafinals. They all then advanced past that. We had 2 of our teams who finished top 8 in state. That was Eleanor McCormick and Nandini Parvatham, as well as Sasha Stefanidis and Hamsini Rangareddy Gari. And then we had another team qualify into the semifinals, which was top 4 finish in state, and that was Annika Argawal and Matthew Giovanetti. And then our novice team of Harshini Varanasi and EJ Semonite advanced all the way into the finals of novice and then won the entire thing. They were the state champs at the novice level. So that was incredible. We've never had a championship team in any of my years as a coach. So we're so excited that they're freshmen, that they did that well their novice year. And we're hoping we can carry that on into the varsity level in the years to come. And then at the varsity level, I want to congratulate Andy Trobe and his partner Leanne Lynn, who isn't here tonight, for their quarterfinalist finish also at the varsity tournament. And then Andy was also named the 6th place best speaker in the state, which makes him a member of the all-state varsity debate team. So another huge accomplishment as well. So we will miss Andy, as I'm sure you guys will, because he's graduating and he's leaving big shoes to fill. But we're so excited about the future of our team. And I just want to thank my assistant coaches, Jen and Kimberly, who have just made my job and all the work of debate so much more fun. So it's really great. We have a good crew and we're proud. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. You guys want to come in and fill in both sides, maybe? You guys-
The next team we'd like to have up is the LHS Science Olympiad team. This team is coached by Paul Karnstadt and assisted with Brandon Murchison and Dr. Jennifer Kahn. And at this time, we'd like to invite Paul and the entire rest of the LHS Science Olympiad team up to hear about their competitions this year.
Got some of my medalists here. All right, so you guys want to stand? So hi, I'm Paul Karnstedt. I'm the head coach of the Science Olympiad team. We're here to recognize the individual medalists we just had at state, but I wanted to kind of shout out a few team accomplishments first. So one thing, and it's fitting that I have some of my senior leaders up here, is we actually had our largest team ever this year. We had over 45 students. Our varsity won a regional this year. That hasn't happened in a long time, not to my memory, and I've been coaching in the area for 15 years. And kind of culminating with that is our team placed 6th overall at state. That's our highest finish since 2011, ranking everybody in the state. We were here 2 years ago celebrating a Division A championship. And the seniors here were a part of that as sophomores. And I kind of made a comment back then that I was praising the seniors then. They're now sophomores in college, just how man, we really had a hard time through COVID. We barely had a team, and then we're back here. And the seniors up here really took the leadership from that moment forward and brought us to even just another level. And I'm just can't say enough nice things about this group of kids. So to focus more on our state accomplishments, and also kind of the Vernon Hills teams over here too, I want to brag a little bit about the district and just kind of talk about how big of an accomplishment this is. If you actually look at the rankings at the end of these state competitions and you look where Vernon Hills is and you look where Libertyville is, all of the schools you see are twice the size of either of us, or their charter schools or their STEM schools. So I just want to say District 128 is kind of killing it in this thing. So I think both teams deserve a little round of applause for that. So anyway, to talk a little bit about these fine young students here, we had 9 medals at state, 2 first places. I'm going to read all of the medals we got. You're going to hear some names repeated. So in 5th place in materials science, we had Eddie Lee and Aryaman Hati. I'm just going to read all these. I'm not going to pause for applause or else we'll be here forever. Electric vehicle, 5th place, Eric Gong and Ian Lee. 4th place, chemistry lab, Eddie Lee and Eli Sway. 3rd place, Shub Varshni, Aryaman Hati. Second place, Code Craze. That's a coding event. Teja Patil and Huria Haroon. Second place, Dynamic Planet, which is an earth science event. Eli Sway and Jordan Louie. Second place, Designer Genes, a biology event. Shub Varshney and Finley Weinstein. First place in the state in Circuit Lab, we had Shub Varshney and Aryaman Hati. And then first place in remote sensing was Eli Sway and Jordan Louie. And I want to put a little extra note on that one because the state this year, or let me back up. There was the Japan America Society in Chicago. There's a physicist from U Chicago named Yoichiro Nambu, who was a Nobel Prize in physics in 2008, and he worked at U Chicago. And an award was started this year for a first place medalist at state. And Eli and Jordan won that this year and won us $2,000 as a team. So that was a pretty special moment when their name was called. So fantastic season, guys. And yeah, they've represented Libertyville and District 128 well. So.
And next is sort of beginning of a couple of combos for the district. So both Libertyville High School and Vernon Hills High School German programs competed in the national German exams. And we have several award winners from those exams. So we're going to have both Heidi Lechner and Alex Kurth come up and talk about our German award winners.
Hi, my name is Alex Kurth, and I'm a German teacher at Vernon Hills and Libertyville High School. I'm here together with my colleague Heidi Lechner, and we are here to celebrate gold medal winners on the German national exam. And we had 3 winners this year in the district. And I'll first recognize the 2 Vernon Hills students here. I had Kavya Ramesh for level 4 gold medal and Amina Baru for gold medal. Herzlichen Glückwunsch, alles Gute.
And it should be noted that the Gold Award is very prestigious, and it's for students who earned in the top 10 percentile for this award. And there are about 15,000 students that take it in the country, and only a few hundred achieve this level. So for Libertyville, I would like to acknowledge Victoria Wisawati, and for level 2. And just to note, Victoria is also fluent in English, Polish, and in AP Spanish currently, and continuing next year with dual credit German. So.
Congratulations.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. My name's Andrew Young, and I'm the proud principal here at Vernon Hills High School. Up next, we're going to talk about our District 128 unified basketball team. So these are athletes and coaches that come from across our district, Transition Pathways, Libertyville, and Vernon Hills High Schools. So I will introduce our coaches, and this is the second time in just a few years that we have a state champion unified basketball team for District 128, which is super special. We also have a couple of coaches who have been in this program and dedicated to this program for a number of years, who are retiring here in just a few short weeks. So I will introduce our coaches and then let them talk about this special group of athletes and the season. So that is Andy Compton, Corey Atwell, Chris Curry, and Suzanne Curry. Let's welcome our coaches here and athletes.
Oh, thanks for having us. This is, I just want to say thank you to everybody here. The district, the board, the community, both schools for the past 26 years that we've been doing this. The sport has grown and grown and grown throughout the community, and it's been awesome to share our successes with all of you. Has been terrific. And what a great way to end it all after 26 years of this is to have an undefeated state championship team that included every, from both schools and from Pathways. So without further ado, we've got 4 members from this team that competed for us this year. That was Devin Acharya, Hazy Morales, Javi Granados, and Marco Pestor. And our great coaches behind me, one of them is Suzanne Curry, and Chris Curry and Corey Atwell all did a great job. And yeah, what a way to go.
All right, up next for Vernon Hills, we're going to switch over to our men's swim and dive, our boys swim and dive program. We would have done this back in March, but many of them were traveling to nationals down in Florida. So before I introduce Coach Pardun is an original at Vernon Hills. And what that means is that he has been here every single year we've been open. And he has also coached this program all 26 years. And if you talk to his athletes or our families, they would walk through fire for him. And so I just want to thank him and his dedication. We still have a couple more years left of Coach Pardun, but I'll let him introduce the program and the athletes for a really special season this year for our boys swim and dive. Come on up, Coach Pardun.
All right, I am going to have to read off my phone. If I don't, I'll be up here for 20 minutes talking about these guys. Exceptional team. We're honoring 7 members of that team tonight, but I also want to give credit to their teammates who aren't here, who didn't qualify for state, but push these guys every day to be their absolute best. So here we go. The Cougars delivered a historic performance at the IHSA State Swim and Dive Meet, highlighted by Yuri Plaxon, his record-breaking weekend. Plaxon captured state titles in both the 50 free and the 100 free, becoming the first state champion in our program's history. Yuri Plaxon. Cody Blumenfeld also earned all-state honors with a 7th place finish, improving on last year's performance by an impressive 8 places. Cody is a sophomore, Cody Blumenfeld. We had a number of relays that continued our momentum. The 200 medley relay consisting of sophomore Jack Jansen. Where's Jack? Jack right here. Edgar Chan, who is a senior. Will Blackmer, who's a junior. And Marco Jinko, who's a junior. They placed 16th at the state meet. Congratulations. And our 200 free relay of Maruthi Kavuri, who is a senior. Yuri Plaxon, Will Blackmer, and Edgar Chan, they finished 11th. Nice job. So what was really cool about this, it's a feat just to hit the state qualifying times, especially in our state of Illinois. It's a very competitive state,
but all 7 of these guys not only hit the times, but they all medaled at the state meet. So that's impressive. We finished 12th place team finish, capping off one of the most successful and historic seasons that our program has ever seen. Thank you very much.
All right, up next is the Vernon Hills Science Olympiad team. The only thing I'll say about this is if you want to see something exciting, go to the announcing of winners at a Science Olympiad match. The thrill and cheering and screaming when they announce the results, which usually results with Vernon Hills on top, is pretty special. Here is your 3rd place in state Vernon Hills Science Olympiad team, coached by Miss Elia, Miss Choi, and Mr. Prosek.
Hey, good evening. Tier 1 captain. Tier 1 captain. Hi, I'm Mark Procyse, the proud science department chair of Vernon Hills High School and also a head science Olympiad coach. So it's my pleasure not to introduce our team, just to pick up where Mr. Carnes had left off. He teed it up nicely for us. Just Saturday, April 17th was a really historic night for this district. The fact that both of our schools finished in the top 10 is just remarkable. And Illinois is one of the most competitive in the union for this. And so for both of our schools to be in the top 10 is the magnitude just cannot be understated, just given the competition and the volume of things that these kids have to study over months, the hours and hours they put into data testing and checking and rechecking rivals a full-time job. It is just so much time. And what both these teams did is really tremendous. So, and our Libertyville friends, you can't find any 3-grader coaches, Carnstead, Murchison, and Kahn, phenomenal teachers and people. We go to them with questions, and D128 is truly lucky to have them in our district. So now to our Vernon Hills crew. This remarkable 3rd place overall finish is a school record for us, and we're super proud of this group. They were also just incredibly fun to be around. We gelled tremendously this year. One little highlight is, where were they when school was canceled for a cold day, or when there was no school on a holiday, or even in the afternoon after taking an ACT test? They were all at the Aspen Library. They had took it upon themselves to schedule a room, and they were there studying and testing and bringing boxes of gear over there and running data tests. So just the dedication this group put in was just really charismatic and just really tremendous. Let's see. I'd also just have to really quick, before I'd be remiss, to thank our parents. They drive them back and forth. They donate food to our homeroom, snacks and things like that. They make us feel like celebrities after an awards ceremony, as Dr. Young mentioned, by coming down and showering us with photographs and congratulations. And so just really a big thank you to our parents. We know, of course, that we feel super supported by them. All right, so here's our record-setting team. Guys, come on up and as they call you up. Okay, in Codebusters, Boomy Lever, a 5th place medal in machines, 2nd place medal in experimental design of Ishan Anand. And I'll just do all of them. We're getting ripping through right now. Okay. All right, 1st place medal in gene regulation and a 2nd place medal in botany, Ekam Ball. In Codebusters, Dynamic Planet, a 4th place medal in both rocks and minerals and astronomy, Soheng Chan. Chem Lab, Material Science and Codebusters is senior Stephen Chan. For Engineering CAD, Electric Vehicle, Dynamic Planet, and a 4th place medal for rocks and minerals, Nadia Cheng. For Protein Modeling, Kenny Diaz Karate. For Chem Lab and Disease Detectives, senior Michael Dang. For Remote Sensing, Electric Vehicle, Bungee Drop, and 2nd place medal in Hovercraft, Savesh Doda. For Disease Detectives, Boomy Lever, Helicopter, and 2nd place medal in Hovercraft, Arnav Garg. First place medal in gene regulation and a second place medal in botany, Sachi Hamade. For water quality and a third place medal in entomology, Jessica Liu. For robot tour, a fifth place in code craze, a first place in ping pong parachute, Kautik Manve. For protein modeling and a fifth place medal in code craze, Vaidehi Matkar. For circuit lab, fifth place medal in machines, second place medal in experimental design, senior and captain, Adit Naik. For electric vehicle, engineering CAD, helicopter, remote sensing, Jayesh Patil. For a fifth place medal in designer genes, third place medal in anatomy and physiology, and third place medal in entomology, William Procyse. Fifth place medal in designer genes, third place medal in anatomy and physiology, and a second place medal in experimental design, senior Kavya Ramesh. And 3 left. Senior material science, water quality, and forensics, senior Ryan Toll. For forensics, a fourth place medal in astronomy and a first place medal overall in robot tour is Parth Vadia. For circuit lab, bungee drop, and a first place medal in robot tour, Mohammed Yusuf. And last but not least, our electric vehicle, boomy lever, agricultural science, first place medal in ping pong parachute, Joshua Zhuang. Kavya was also captain. I was right. Okay. With that, I just would like to just thank our 2 coaches, 2 elite science teachers, Jan Choi and Amy Elliott. We could not run this program without them. So thank you very much, and congrats to this historical team.
How are you?
All right, the paparazzi just follows that crew. My gosh. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to introduce, I see we have a couple of coaches tonight. It looks like Mr. Joe and Mr. Gustafson, our head coach, the Vernon Hills math team. If you have not heard, the state of Illinois scheduled the Science Olympiad finals and the math state finals on the same weekend. So our students, all students across the state had to make choices, and yet still our teams were top 3 finishers. This is the second time in a row where the Vernon Hills math team placed in the top 3 in the state of Illinois. So let's welcome Coach Gustafson and the Vernon Hills math team.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. So we have about half of our math team members here who went down to state with us a couple weekends ago. Let's see. I'll turn around and give some names. So we got Tyler Kim, Anune Arun, oh my gosh, Arnav Gupta, sorry, Ani Jagannath, Jairus Buke, Kijang Kim. I shouldn't be doing this without names. Tarun Hiremath, Aman Garg, Joshua Kim, Jake Hulangar, and Rhea Durampal. So we had a very successful year with math team. This is the first year I've been head coach, so I was glad to kind of pick up the mantle and have us do really well again at state. I'm not going to necessarily go through everyone's point totals, but I would like to mention that for all of our competitions, of which there are individual competitions at each grade level, there are freshman, sophomore 8 teams, junior, senior 8 teams, freshman, sophomore 2-person team, junior, senior 2-person team, our calculator team, and our orals team. For all of our groups across all of the events, we did score in the top 10 of our division in state this year. So I'm really proud of all these guys and gals that were able to do that for us. A couple highlights for us. Tarun Higher Math, right there, part of our freshman, sophomore 2-person team, our calculator team, and our algebra and individuals team got 2nd place overall in 3AA in points scored on the individual test. And while he cannot be here today, Drew Lancioni, a senior, got 3rd overall in the pre-calculus individual competition in all of our 3A divisions. So across the board, we did a phenomenal job. I would like to thank the kids, their parents, the other coaches, Jess Chapman, Lauren Harmon, Alex Joe, Brittany Mitchell, Jen Ty, for just having a wonderful year, putting in a lot of hard work and dedication. And yeah, these guys did a wonderful, wonderful job. Thank you very much. Jairus, you're holding down the fort.
How about another round of applause for all these great participants? It's always a great night when we can recognize all of our students here. So, okay. And I will offer, if all of the parents, whatever, the students that are here, if you want to stick around, feel free to do so, but don't feel obligated to. It's going to be a bit of a meeting here, and but we're more than happy to have you stick around. But if you'd like to jump out, we'll give you a moment here to do that. Okay, we're coming up next on the agenda is our invitation for public comment. Just a reminder, we have a limitation of 3 minutes. So when you see the timer up here, when it gets close to that 3 minutes, we'd like you to wrap it up because we have a lot of meeting to get to. And we have a few people that have signed up to speak. So I'm going to start with Jack Jansen.
I just want to start off by thanking you for recognizing me and my teammates. I would like to talk a little bit about PE exemptions since I see it's on tonight's schedule. Unfortunately, I won't be able to stay for the whole discussion, but because I need to make my way to swim practice, but I still want to voice some concerns before I go. Illinois is one of only 4 states in the country where students must take PE all 4 years. Luckily, the Illinois state policy allows for juniors and seniors to exempt from gym if they fall within certain guidelines. Many different high schools around Illinois, such as Stevenson, Warren, Chicago Public Schools, and others, have taken advantage of this opportunity to allow their upperclassmen schedule flexibility, not just with oddly shaped exemption holes in their schedule that can only be used for study halls. Other schools allow for full semester and even full year exemptions, which allow students to register for other needed coursework. Illinois policy was specifically designed to allow districts flexibility to support student needs, yet our district hasn't taken that opportunity and continually rejects or creates obstacles to these exemptions. Of course, students who don't wish to take exemptions should be allowed to stay in PE. But those who want, need, or qualify for exemptions should have them granted. The solution should be simple if we're going to be fair to our students. Grant them the exemptions that Illinois allows so they can register for coursework necessary to be competitive, balanced, and well-prepared for post-secondary goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Dan, is it Vascos?
Yeah, it's Vasnos.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dan Vasnos. I'm a former school administrator with over 2 decades of high school experience here in Illinois, where I served as an athletic director, a building administrator, and district leader. I know how these buildings work. I know how decisions get made. I know when administrators are choosing the institution over a child. I also serve on the board of Kids 2, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting children from predatory conduct and strengthening laws and systems meant to keep them safe. But tonight, I'm here as a father. I have a 7-year-old son named Ellis who has Down syndrome. He is the reason why I left education for the National Down Syndrome Society, and I cannot stay silent about what has happened in this district. A 15-year-old girl with Down syndrome, a student with limited capacity to self-advocate, to understand boundaries, to report what was being done to her, was allegedly subjected to calculated campaign of grooming and abuse by a teacher in this district. This is documented in a lawsuit that was covered by CBS. You guys know what happened here. I don't need to recap anything. Voicemails surfaced in late 2024, extra credit, unconditional affection, you name it. It's sick. And as a father, it breaks my heart. This is not a gray area. This is a documented failure to follow the law. I've obtained internal emails. I've combed through them, including one in which Brian Kelly is copied on, that this district moved to offer this teacher an early retirement buyout rather than report him, managing him out quietly. Let me be direct. Under Illinois law, mandated reporters who willfully fail to report suspected abuse are guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. And if this person acted to prevent discovery of abuse, to shield any person or entity from accountability, that's a Class 4 felony. These are not hypothetical penalties, guys. These are laws in the state of Illinois, laws that I've worked to strengthen. I've worked alongside Representative Mussman on House Bill 4241 a few years ago, legislation that were to protect individuals with disabilities from this exact kind of predatory conduct. It passed the House here in Illinois unanimously. For some reason, it failed to get out of the Senate. I've thought about that failure many times since this case came to my attention. Representative Mussman has since confirmed in writing that this district did not follow state law and that ISBE has an open investigation. Last week, I met with my local senator to discuss next steps, including coming up with legislation, including mandatory background checks. The question before you tonight is not whether this happened. The question is what will this board do about it? Because Brian Kelly has not been held accountable. The silence of this institution is being watched by legislators, advocates, and my community, and every family in this district. My son, Ellis, cannot advocate for himself the way other students and children can. Neither could this student at the center of this lawsuit. That is exactly why laws exist, and that is exactly why this board must act. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, Marty Navarro.
Good evening. I am Marnie Navarro, District 128 graduate and incoming parent. I speak for myself. Our children are not safe at District 128. The first obligation of a school district should be the physical and emotional safety of our children. District 128 has failed to meet this minimum threshold. The district has a long history of corruption, collusion, and cover-up, failure to mandatory report instances of suspected child abuse and grooming, failure to investigate, failure to follow the law. The recent Doe lawsuit is only the most recent incident. For years, students and parents' reports to staff and admin have gone nowhere. District 128's failure to follow the law has led to more children being victimized, parents ignored, and the system protecting itself. This is not an isolated incident. It is illustrative of systemic corruption and failure. Bryant Kelly is and has been the head of SPED, HR, Title IX, Tech, FOIA officer, and non-discrimination coordinator for years. Too much power consolidated in one person who has failed to fulfill the obligations of these various roles, with devastating consequences to our students and incredible liability exposure to our district. Board President Jim Batson has sat on this board for 15 years and has completely failed to respond to, much less represent this community. Instead of leading a community call for transparency and accountability, President Batson's contribution appears to consist of timing public comments and cutting certain community members off at 3 minutes. Research reveals a troubling history at 128 of staff misconduct involving minors. Parker Rohde had an extensive criminal history, 3 restraining orders, violated orders of protections, DUIs, stalking, multiple leaves of absence, and 128 knowingly put him in the SPED classroom with our most vulnerable students, now subjecting our district to at least one civil lawsuit. To be clear, trying to settle that lawsuit quietly now is not accountability, nor does it fix the problem of systemic rot. Adam Faulkner is a former District 128 SPED paraprofessional who was arrested this week on indecent solicitation and grooming charges involving 2 Wakanda High School students. Corey Beard, former Vernon Hills High School soccer coach, pled guilty to criminal sexual assault of 3 minor students. Riaz Havidai, former Vernon Hills High School teacher, charged with 3 counts of aggravated battery, class 3 felony for alleged inappropriate touching of minor student at Deerfield High School. Andrew Warfield, former Libertyville High School teacher, convicted of felony aggravated criminal sexual abuse of a 16-year-old student. And those are just the formal criminal charges and convictions. We parents are aware of multiple other current and former District 128 staff against whom numerous reports were made for inappropriate contact, grooming, stalking, and intoxication on the job. Same playbook every time, same players. Reports not acted upon, no outside investigation, no mandatory reporting to DCFS or law enforcement. Shuffling perpetrators around buildings until they are quietly ushered out via early retirement with full pension. Superintendent Mark Schaefer and board, this is on you now. You've known about the Parker Rohde situation at least since June of 2025. After an investigation in September of 25, Schaefer found that Bryant Kelly, Ray Albin, Jennifer Loika, Josh Simo, and Megan Silverberg failed to comply with Board Policy 290, abused and neglected child reporting, stating the district will take appropriate action. What action has been taken? All 5 remain in their roles, and this board gave 3 of the 5 raises last month. We parents demand transparency and accountability. Put a stop to the culture of corruption and cover-up and protect our children. Thank you.
Marilyn Lacrosse.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Lacrosse, and I am a parent of a child who did not have obvious disabilities. Yet I do feel like there were teachers that tried to groom her just because she was a shy child who didn't speak up for herself. I feel like there was collusion. I feel like when I complained, they made me the bad person. And I agree that there is a culture of not protecting the students. All the students need to be protected. And I came because I think that we will continue to remind you until you really do take action and hold the administrators accountable for their culture of protecting abusers.
Thank you. Leave it open if anyone else wants to address the board. Okay.
John Hetzel, Vernon Hills parent. I find it interesting, Brian Kelly's the only person on this whole panel here that didn't look up once when people were speaking in the last 5 minutes. Jim, you also fluttered your eyes every which way you could too. Everyone else was focused. Yep, Jim, that's a nice smirk you got because you've been covering up a lot of things for a long time. You've been on the board 15 years, another 5 or 6 in the other district. You were never president before. You got it by Lisa resigning, and she resigned because of what she knew and what you knew. But your ego was too big. You had to be president. And now you can't be removed from it for negligent work that you do on this board, which has been quite extensive. You're also the one who voted for all the policies that have caused, other than what we saw tonight, black, brown, white, SPED, and IEP students, scores go backwards. Policy 590 has been ignored by you as well as other administrators sitting over here, including Brian Kelly, which is the mandatory reporter. None of you all report anything with knowledge. Man, you guys got a real problem here. You guys are not student-centric. It's administrative-centric. It's ego-centric. And that's a problem. Jim, you need to resign. Brian Kelly needs to be taken care of as well because he's created a lot of problems. Even just look at this week, the circumstance we had with just the fitness tracking. How did that happen? How do we violate policy? This guy writes all the policies, yet we seem to find policies that are broken all over the place that aren't being adhered to. This kind of caca needs to stop. Jim, you need to resign. You've overseen a really bad culture in the administrative office, and you've allowed it to happen. You voted for policies that created problems for a majority of our students not being successful and academically not achieving the next level. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Sorry, I came in a little late. Hi, guys. Sorry. My name is Amy Franz. I'm a special educator and a parent of 3 graduates from LHS. Sorry, this is a little last minute. I did send you a letter, so you have all of my notes. I don't really want to repeat everything that's already been said. I think you guys understand what's going on here. I stood before you over a month ago regarding the same issues. I laid out the issue with this vulnerable student. As a special educator, I am appalled that nobody reported this. This is your legal obligation to do so. But I'm here again today because it seems clear that there's not an interest in any accountability or consequences, only in damage control. District appears to be quietly settling a lawsuit with the affected child. But let me be clear, writing a check with district funds, taxpayer dollars is not accountability, and it doesn't fix the systemic problems that have allowed this to happen in the first place. What's really concerning me now is we're hearing that there are others. There are more involved. There are more teachers. There are more students. Please talk to your staff. They know who is involved. I work with a lot of these kids in my private business. These are not secrets to them. How many more children need to be victimized before we take this more seriously? And we're going to keep coming up here until we see some consequences. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Lisa Rohde, and I am merely a cog in the wheel. I'm a taxpayer in D128. My children are out of high school. I'm doubly disenfranchised by choice. I sent them to Carmel Catholic and Loyola Academy. And I beg of you people up here to do the right thing, hold people accountable, and people should be fired, pensions revoked. I understand there's a problem. You have the union. Well, something should be done about them so people can be held accountable. And I would like to just beg for you to do something, do the right thing, And I am here not only to support the people that have already spoken, but to support the community, because when these people try to resell their house, we need to have a good school district. We can't have this malarkey going on. And Mr. Schaefer, I feel sorry for you. You came into a bad situation. Stand up to all these people, get a coalition together, and do it right. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on. We have a Educational Support Professionals Union report. Come on down.
Good evening, students, community members, fellow D128 staff members, board members, and the administration. My name is Jennifer Shepard, and I am honored to serve as the president of the Community High School District 128 Education Support Professionals Union. This year has provided valuable opportunities for ESP staff to collaborate with Dr. Schaefer. He has made a point to hold open meetings where ESP staff can share their thoughts, opinions, and concerns directly. He's listened, he's engaged in meaningful dialogue at labor management meetings, and worked alongside union leadership to address concerns and problem solve as a team. These efforts reflect a positive direction forward. Our education support professionals are just that. They are professionals who support every aspect of student learning and staff in various ways. Our staff operates both on the front line with students in the classroom by providing direct and indirect support and ensuring student and staff safety, as well as behind the scenes, organizing everything from 8th grade orientation through Honors Day and graduation. We organize field trips, testing days, accommodations for testing, test makeup processes and oversight, processing fee waivers and lunch applications, student grade state reporting, annual student registration, management of the master schedule, student fees, budget management for academic departments, operations, and administration. This is just a snapshot of what we do. Our positions are constantly evolving to address changing technology, changing student needs, family concerns, and more. We do this work because each of us passionately believes in our students, our teachers, and each other. We work to create a district that our families and our communities can take pride in. It's important to note that our roles and responsibilities are consistently growing and expanding, not shrinking. Tonight, you'll receive staffing recommendations from the district administration. The Union Executive Board has also had the opportunity to review these recommendations. As you consider them, I ask that you keep in mind the strategic plan currently in development and several key things that have consistently emerged. An environment where students feel safe, an environment where students feel seen, an environment where students feel connected. Students cannot fully engage in learning if their environment does not support these essential elements. Many of the educational support professionals play a critical role in fostering this environment, including our campus safety staff, paraprofessionals, and members of the learning support teams. I recognize that positions evolve, supervisory roles shift, and personnel changes are a natural part of each school year. I also appreciate the importance of fiscal responsibility and the need to evaluate whether administrative roles are effectively serving our student needs or if they could be restructured. However, it is important to acknowledge that adding supervisory positions cannot replace the vital work of the support staff. Administrative roles and support personnel serve different complementary purposes and cannot substitute for each other. As we continue working with students, families, staff, and the broader community to rebuild trust and promote transparency, we must recognize and respect the essential day-to-day contributions of our support professionals. In today's world, safety is not a luxury, it's a fundamental necessity for every member of our school community. Our education support professionals are present in every corner of our schools: offices, hallways, classrooms, libraries, testing centers, working every day to create a safe, supportive environment where students can grow, take risks, and expand their potential. Please keep this in mind as you review our staffing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. We're going to hear from our student school board reps. Take it away.
Okay, we're going to switch it up and I'm going to start tonight. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, my report will center on the use of AI in the classroom. As you all know, AI usage among students has drastically increased over the last few years. It's evolved from a shortcut for homework to a tool that, when used correctly, can and has been genuinely supporting learning. For example, in my AP Government class, we've been using an AI platform to study for upcoming tests. And in my calculus class, AI has aided in my understanding of difficult concepts. But most importantly, AI usage policies have widely varied by teacher. Some encourage AI usage on assignments, while others ban it entirely. In this context, students with more AI permissive teachers may be developing skills that others aren't, and vice versa, which raises questions about if we're all being set up equally for the future. This highlights the importance of clear district-wide guidelines on AI usage, which Dr. Albin informed us is already being worked on by a district group, which is a good sign. But I also asked this group to think ahead. This fall, I'm heading to college where I can take courses on AI in business, AI in team performance, and the politics of its usage, among many others. Clearly, AI is not going away. So it's becoming more important that students don't just know how to use these tools, but understand their limitations and how they're used in the real world. Overall, clear guidelines and investment in AI literacy among students are important to ensure students leave the district both supported and prepared. Thank you.
Good evening. Today I wanted to focus on a big event that's coming up in our schools, AP testing. Now, most people know that AP tests begin next week, but what they might not know is that some AP tests have already started. AP Seminar and AP Research have already had their main presentations of the year. I was one of those AP Research students who presented their year-long college-level research study about differing opinions of gene editing. Now, while these presentations are extremely important and impressive, it is also important to recognize how difficult all of our other APs are. With these next 2 weeks approaching fast, it is important to support these students at Libertyville and Vernon Hills now more than ever. While recognizing these students, I also want to take a moment to thank our teachers. Teachers at LHS go above and beyond when it comes to helping students prepare for these exams. They truly care about providing us all the materials to maximize our success. From practice exams and review days to taking time out of their own nights and mornings to come in to help us review, I sincerely want to thank all of our teachers. I've had several teachers in the past reserve rooms within the school to hold hour-long review sessions with their classes, and many teachers open up their rooms before tests for last-minute questions and inquiries. I've had teachers go as far as to provide breakfast for students the morning of tests as a congratulations for succeeding and a good luck on our tests. Teachers truly do not get enough recognition for how much time they spend preparing us for these exams. Thank you so much.
Okay, sorry. Good evening, members of the board. Today, I'm going to ask you to consider the experience of a student walking through the halls of Vernon Hills High School. Over the past 4 years, I have seen the many ways this school has positively shaped its community, but at the same time, one issue has remained consistent: the presence of casual microaggressions in everyday student interactions. Just this past week, I made a conscious effort to observe the language used around me. On average, I heard approximately 6 slurs per day in casual conversation, targeting race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, and intellectual ability. These words are not hidden. They are spoken openly in the hallways, often in front of adults. While there is sometimes intervention, it does not change the behavior, and students continue without hesitation. Although the school has introduced microaggression awareness and freshman transition programs, it is clear this effort is not as effective as it needs to be. The behavior persists, suggesting that there is a more direct and comprehensive approach that is necessary. Vernon Hills is a diverse community, and that diversity is one of its greatest strengths. However, when harmful language continues without consistent accountability, that sense of inclusion begins to weaken. There is a growing perception among students that consequences for these actions are not always impactful. Deans specifically play an important role in maintaining a safe environment, and that responsibility must be reflected in clear and meaningful responses. For example, When students can return immediately to sports or extracurriculars after incidents involving hate speech, it sends a message that these actions are not taken seriously. This shapes how the entire student body understands accountability. One step forward is to strengthen existing systems, expanding and requiring more impactful training, such as Speak Up training, which has already been implemented as an optional course for Vernon Hills High School students. It aims to combat this speech in a way more intensified training program. We could introduce that into the freshman transition program in replacement of the microaggression training currently in place. And it would set a clear expectation from the start, and it would shift this work from more of an optional thing to an essential thing. Vernon Hills High School has already taken important steps. Building on them with stronger accountability and more effective training will help ensure that all students feel safe, respected, and able to succeed. Thank you.
All right. Good evening. I'm Annika, and this year, my focus has been how students have been impacting their community. And today, I look forward to talking about how the community has benefited students in return. One important way is through guest speakers. Sophomore Sarki Mehta, a member of the VHHS Model UN Exec Board, shared how members have benefited from their recent guest speaker, John Santamaro, who worked in the Geneva part of the UN. It was very beneficial as we learned a lot about how you don't actually have to have a degree in law to work in the UN, and that many people from many different backgrounds work there as well. Our club members were actually very engaged, and they were able to learn lots and lots of good questions were asked. Another powerful example of guest speakers inspiring VHHS students was the Women Across Careers panel held by Dare to Empower, and it featured 5 women from male-dominated fields for Women's History Month. Opportunities like this allow VHHS students to feel seen and empowered and to explore possible pathways for their future with realistic expectations. And an additional way VHHS brings the community to students is through career exploration activities. Just this past Friday, senior Kian So was selected to attend Trauma Day, which is a full-day field trip to Advocate Condell Hospital for students interested in healthcare. He shared that Trauma Day gave me the opportunity to explore different professions, fields, and aspects of medicine and the healthcare system that I wouldn't have been able to normally gain insight into. I especially found it valuable to talk to actual medical professionals about future career paths that I could take, what they entail, and the best ways to get there. Also last week, VHHS held a career fair with representatives from institutions like CLC, where students were given the opportunity to ask questions and possibly attain positions in the near future. In all, VHHS has been providing more exposure to various paths after high school and should continue to provide students with support by bringing these opportunities and people to them that help them explore their post-secondary options, because it sets them up for success now and throughout their life. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ashva, and today I'll be sharing perspectives on the college decision process for seniors at Vernon Hills, as well as reflecting on prom and school spirit. As May 1st, the national college decision deadline approaches, seniors are finalizing their commitments. This year, Vernon Hills has seen notable admission success. Senior Adik Naik reflected on his commitment to UC Berkeley, where he plans to study physics. While excited, he shared that the process can be especially challenging for students applying to highly selective or out-of-state schools. Audit and other seniors noted that while the College Resource Center provides extremely helpful support, many resources seem geared towards in-state schools like the University of Illinois. For students aiming for out-of-state or more selective universities, he felt there could be more guidance on building an application narrative or essays. Other seniors said that connecting with Vernon Hills alumni who attended the school or program they were applying to was especially helpful. They also noted that some peers paid thousands of dollars for outside college consulting, even though much of the advice could and should be shared with District 128 students for free. Expanding college advising through staff or additional support could make these resources even more accessible. During peak application season, students often struggle to gain enough feedback. More structured mentorship, alumni connections, and essay support could help ensure all students receive the guidance they need. In addition, seniors recently celebrated prom at Vernon Hills High School, which many described as memorable and well organized. Senior Christine Lee shared that prom was a blast and that everything from check-in to music to the overall atmosphere went smoothly. She also noted a clear increase in school spirit this year. From state send-off marches to recognizing academic and athletic accomplishments, she said Vernon Hills has done an excellent job of celebrating a wide range of student interests. As seniors prepare for graduation, continued focus next year on college support, school spirit, and student recognition will help strengthen the Vernon Hills High School experience for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I always learn things and gets the mind going on different ideas. So thank you for all that information. We're going to move forward for, we have a few FOIA requests that the board has had a chance to review. And then we're going to jump into the superintendent's report.
And I just want to expand upon President Batson's words. I am just truly grateful for the voice of our students. Not only our student board representatives, this evening we had a student speaker as well for public comment. Our students are bright. They have something to say, and we should listen to them. So I certainly appreciate everything you bring. It's very illuminating. So thank you, and humbling.
And even award-winning speakers.
So good news report. We had a lot of good news this morning with a lot of our state champions. So I'll just extend a little bit more. We had 7 District 128 Special Olympic athletes who competed at last weekend's Area Spring Games at Hoffman Estates High School. 4 of the athletes earned gold and will compete at the State Summer Games. Congratulations to state qualifiers Malene Brody, Hannah Kreitch, Eddie Beecher, and Xavier Granados. The Vernon Hills High School fall production of Seussical has been nominated for Best Ensemble by the Illinois High School Music Theater Awards. The IHSMTAs, sponsored by Broadway in Chicago, celebrate excellence in high school musical theater across the state. Winners will be announced at the awards ceremony in Chicago this May. Finally, student journalists from the Vernon Hills High School Scratching Post and the Libertyville High School DOI were recognized at the Northern Illinois Scholastic Press Association Conference on April 10th. Both publications earn a silver rating overall, with students also receiving multiple individual awards. So now we want to move on to our Daring Champion Award presentation. The monthly D128 Daring Champion Awards celebrate 1 certified staff member, 1 support staff member, and 1 community member organization who exemplify the district's daring mission. Nominations are submitted by D128 staff. Nominees must demonstrate elements of our daring mission: D for dreamers and doers, A for aware, R resilient and healthy, I inquisitive, N nimble, and G global. A selection committee of staff members reviews and evaluates nominees. Tonight, we are excited to recognize our April honorees. At the conclusion of the awards, we will take a group photo. And our first honoree in the community category is the GLMV Chamber of Commerce. Chamber Director Scott Adams will be introduced by their nominator, Ben Rodriguez.
Good evening, everybody. Hi, I'm here to introduce Scott Adams. So the GLMV, for those who don't know, represents a local body of businesses that support post-secondary pathways in our community. So we know there's amazing options and opportunities around our community for students to explore their future options or possibilities, and their work represents a vital part of our work to support all students in exploring multiple paths. So Scott Adams and Kara Levin have worked with our district not only to provide internship sites, but also to refer fellow businesses to our partnership network. They've regularly hosted us to present at chamber events, connecting us to other potential partners in the community and pointing business colleagues to our district. This has allowed students to become daring by exploring meaningful post-secondary pathways right around our community. So thank you, Scott, for your...
Oh, thank you, Ben.
Yeah, no.
Our next honoree in the certified staff category is Scott Shinto, who will be introduced by his nominator, Meg Lavery.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to come, okay, my guy here. Scott Shinto embodies what it means to be daring. He is both a dreamer and a doer, constantly reminding us every morning, let's go change some lives, and that today is a great day to have a great day.
He's deeply aware of others, showing up every day to greet students with fist bumps outside of the locker room and making everyone feel seen and valued. Through years of coaching and mentoring, he fosters resilience and health in both students and staff, modeling positivity and consistency in everything he does, like his morning jogs down Butterfield Road. He's naturally inquisitive, building genuine relationships and creating lasting memories, from welcoming new staff to connecting with longtime D128 colleagues. Shinto is nimble, always stepping in wherever needed. Whether supporting a colleague, helping with a home project, or sharing his treehouse, his global mindset is reflected in the inclusive, joyful community that he helps create across our entire school. He is the life force and the heartbeat of our department, and truly one in a million, an authentic, kind, and joyful presence who leads with a deep love for people. That's you, buddy. So.
Put some air back in this room. Thank you very much.
Our final honoree tonight in the Educational Support Profession category is Olga Homza. Olga's nominator, Jessica Hernandez, was unable to attend tonight's meeting, so she will be introduced by Tom Colentis.
Yes, I'm very, very honored to be here to present this honor to Olga. We heard from our ESP union tonight, and Olga is one of those very talented people that Jen Shepard spoke of. I never told you this, Olga, but I have been admiring you for many years. I was a former EL bilingual director, and I have seen the work that Olga does for our students and have just been blown away. So I'm going to read what Jessica wrote, and everything that Jessica wrote is shared by me as well. So Olga has been working as an EL teaching assistant for the last 4 years, and this year has a blended TA and teaching schedule because she dreamt up, built, and launched our first ever Russian language arts program here in District 128. As an educator herself, she has demonstrated great resiliency across many hurdles to transferring her teaching license from her home country of Belarus to the USA. And as me playing a small part in that process, I know that she had a lot of hurdles with the State Board of Education, and she knocked them all down. In spite of teaching for many years, the state asked her to take multiple tests as well as do extensive coursework, and she did all of this while working full-time and developing a new course for us. In addition, Olga helped design the placement test and took charge of proctoring, scoring, and communicating home to families in order to welcome our first ever cohort of honors Russian language arts speakers in our school. In the classroom, as both a TA and a teacher, Olga has embodied awareness of student identities, helping students fully access the curriculum even while they are still developing their fluency in English. This builds their sense of belief and belonging, which helps strengthen their mental health and resilience as they move around the globe. Olga nimbly supports students across departments and is flexible as the new students arrive. Obviously, being globally connected, she embeds a variety of cultural components from the many cultures that call Russian a home language. Finally, Olga has risen to quite a variety of challenges. Since she started as the only Russian-speaking adult in the school that has Russian as a main home language, for a quiet person, she's taken on many big challenges that place her in leadership roles. She has done live translations for orientation nights. She has helped support the BPAC Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee. She has made calls home to families and has been called on by the LSTs to support students in their times of need. She has truly provided a sense of community to the many EL and non-EL families that now call VHHS home. We want to thank Olga for her wonderful work in District 128.
So congratulations to our April honorees, and thank you.
Could Olga just say?
Oh, absolutely.
I would like to share this award with my dear colleagues of EL department. I cannot achieve it without them. I'm really thankful for constant support of these people. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olga, and thank you to our April honorees. We'd love to take a group photo with you, please. Group photo.
Okay, congratulations to all those folks. Well deserved. You're finished? We'll move on. Next is a discussion item for the proposed board meeting schedule for 26-27 school year. You want to set this up?
So Board of Education members, for your consideration is a proposed 2026-2027 board meeting schedule. You will note that there is a proposal to maintain the one board meeting a month schedule, but also canceling our July meeting. So in your packet, you'll see the proposed dates. There are two dates I want to draw your attention to. The first one, so we always meet on the last Monday of each month, but in January, Tuesday, January 26th, we are recommending a shift to that Tuesday because that Monday is the EdRed legislative event or dinner, which I know most of our board looks to attend. And then if you move down to Tuesday, April 27th, we would note that on Monday, April 26th, it is a no students or staff a day. So our district is closed on that day, and so we would recommend moving that to Tuesday, April 27th. And the only other note you'll see is that we are recommending an alternation of our school campuses to continue the cadence that we've been doing this year.
And I thank you for that. And for those who aren't aware, I know we are all aware, we used to have a 2 board meeting schedule. We had committee meetings earlier in the month, the second Monday, and then the fourth Monday was always the board meeting. And there was a suggestion to try this, and we've tried this the last few months. And while it creates a little bit longer, a little bit more packed board meetings, we start earlier and sometimes go just as long. It does allow us to, get our work done in one evening. That doesn't mean we won't have periodic meetings for special topics of different sorts, maybe a budget meeting or something like that. But I think this is a more effective use of our time and just requires us to be a little more proactive on the materials we're given each month. I'll open it up for any comments or discussion on if we want to move forward with this.
I have a comment. I would like to see, whether it be tentative or whatever, a board meeting listed in July, because I find it easier to cancel a board meeting if we have no business than add one if there is a business that needs to be conducted, before the start of school.
That's a good idea, and it also allows us to sort of.
And if there's no business, there's no business.
Yeah, and we have it on the calendar. The trouble always with the summer meetings is because people are traveling and there's a lot of things going on. Sometimes we don't have enough board members to have a board meeting. It hasn't happened recently, but it can happen. So that would be. I don't know if that needs to be on the official or that we just all agree that we're going to pencil in that same fourth Monday. as a potential.
Yeah, I would like to see it on the calendar so the public is aware. And like I said, there could be just
Just-
something notated as
yeah.
tentative.
Tentative. Okay. Other thoughts? Everyone good with that? Do we have I think at some point, don't we have to vote on this? Next month? Yeah, okay.
Do we
So
have
we'll,
to? We can't just get board consensus?
we've typically voted on it, so
Okay.
we'll, I think we make that adjustment and just, it doesn't hurt, so we'll just put it on a agenda item next month to vote on that. And so that's how we'll start out the year. Had a discussion of the board policy 2:110.
Are we just open for discussion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll start with this one too, since I requested that this be on the agenda. Reviewing the policy, I find it to be common sense to have a mechanism for removal of board officers if needed. I have some proposed language, and I would like to see this for a vote at the next meeting. Legal is more than welcome to take a look at this language and adjust it to make it maybe make a little bit more sense. But I have, if a majority of the board finds an officer elected by its body, president, vice president, or secretary, has been or is derelict of duty, the board may remove the officer from their position. An immediate vote to replace those officers will be taken, and replacement officers will be chosen by a majority vote. A following vote will occur if a vacancy of an elected officer is created by the preceding vote. The unseated officer will resume duties as a regular board member.
So I believe there's some things in school code about this. There's something about removing and I don't recall when I've had to.
So
Look
the
it up.
language is we are unable to remove somebody from the board. Every one of us as board members are elected by the public. The only way to remove a board member off the board is through petitioning through the Regional
Yeah,
Office
regional
of
office,
Education.
Right.
But as to the officers we elect internally for our position, we are able to change this policy.
Yeah, I have no concern about adding language. We'll just have to run it by legal to make sure that we're
Yeah, and
kosher with whatever
and
we need to be.
So the request is that this be up for a vote on the next, at the next board meeting, followed by an action item to take action if so moved by a member or.
So a board policy has to go through 2 cycles. It's a
I
legal
don't know
thing.
that it does. We can check with legal on that.
You have a first reading and a second reading.
And I'd just like a clarification. So here we are saying that we elect our officers as a board, and we then want the authority to displace them. Is
Yes.
that what we are basically trying to say here?
Yeah, if
But
we
it's
think
for
that there's an
reason.
issue or for
Yeah.
cause, derelict
Yeah.
of duty, or, that was just, the phrase that I'm using, but I do believe that there also is a mechanism for us to approve that policy and act on that policy in the same meeting. So that can become something that comes from legal.
As a concept, I don't have an issue, but from a legal perspective, that how do we define that cause? How do we come to that conclusion? I think it would be of value if we discuss this a little bit more carefully as to what exactly we are trying to achieve here before making it a policy. Because once it's a policy, it stays and you have to go through the whole motion of getting those readings and then implementing it. And if you realize that, no, that was a hasty policy put in place, then we again have the challenge of displacing it.
Correct, but regardless of what the policy says, the action can only be taken with a majority of the board, and the majority of the board is the voice of the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not disputing any of that. All I'm just saying that it may be of value for us to think about it carefully in terms of the language, what exactly we want to achieve before putting it for a vote for discussion.
Oh, I mean, I think that what we would want to achieve is clear. I'm good with it moving forward. I mean, I guess we can see where everybody else on the board is and see where the majority lies now to see if it'll be an action item for next time. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, if the board, if there's consensus among the majority of the board, we can move forward with it. So we have a proposal, and obviously you're not going to formally vote on it, but I'm looking for a consensus of 4 or more.
So head nods usually is what we do.
Right.
So, I mean, I
Or
guess
affirmative comments, or just any.
okay with
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it. Just for clarification, so after this, we're going to run it by legal so that when it comes for discussion at the next meeting, we'll know
Well,
that.
no,
Have
not for
information.
discussion, for action. So what I'm looking for is an action item. I believe it's already been discussed with legal that we do have the authority to do this. Where legal comes in is whether the action item can be placed again
Okay.
directly after.
Yeah, I'm
Is
okay
a
with it.
legal
That's
position
fine. Yes.
on that, because that I am not affirmative on whether we have to wait another cycle or whether we can take action right away. So that would need an opinion from legal.
I think it depends when we get advice from legal. I'd like to look at that and then review the current policy we have and before we make a decision. And so it depends how much time we have.
Okay, there's been an opinion from legal that this is okay to do.
Who obtained that opinion from our legal?
So there was a question around just policy in general, in terms of like, not in any specific policy, but just in terms of running legal opinion about creating or changing policy.
So not about this specific language
No,
or this specific,
About this specific policy. Not the specific language. Not about the language, but the specific policy that we do have the right to change it. That was the legal opinion.
we have the
that was
right
asked
to
for.
change any policy. That's for certain. But like Nina said, and I think we need to make sure that however we change this, we also get a legal opinion to ensure all these policies. And for those people that are not familiar, all these policies are written by a team of lawyers working for the Illinois Association of School Boards. And these are all very well vetted and ensure that they follow all school code, all legal opportunities. So
I understand.
all I'm saying is before we can bring this to, a vote to vote on a policy, I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we're not implementing a policy that doesn't qualify, that doesn't cover, that doesn't support laws, school code, that kind of thing.
I drafted proposed language and I was told that legal will craft correct language that will be followed by the law.
So
So
if that's
I-
the case, then we'll bring it back at the next board meeting and we can discuss it.
I think that's all I was basically
Yeah.
coming at, that we should have some kind of a clarity on what exactly is the language we're talking about before taking it for discussion or any kind of vote further. So I think that's all I'm saying. Let's not haste it. We can implement it if it's approved, but we need to understand what exactly we are trying to do here as a.
I mean, I think that I was pretty clear in my proposal, and I think that we have majority consensus to vote next week, and
I
people can
didn't
vote
hear
how they
that.
want.
I heard people saying, and we can go around the table
can go
again. I
around
heard
again.
people saying,
Great.
assuming that we get feedback from legal, I
I
cannot
heard
commit
that
to
from
your
some
language.
people. It probably won't be my language, and when I crafted the language, I said that legal is more than happy to make it make a little more sense than I might have, because I'm not a lawyer. But I heard as a majority, to have this as an action item to vote on the policy. Maybe I'm mistaken. We can double check it
Because
again.
as it is now, the policy states that we elect officers every 2 years after an election. And that's all it says. So we would have to wait until the next election. And so I think that this is gives us the opportunity to have a voice in what we want to do as a board. But the policy was in the packet, so it's there if you'd like to read it. As it states now.
As it stands now, yeah.
Do we want to check for majority consensus again? I'm happy to do that.
So the question would be is, well, I'll voice my opinion. I'm not willing to commit to vote saying I'm going to vote affirmative to a policy that I have not yet seen.
You don't have to
And
vote
we have to
affirmative
go-
to a policy. You can vote no.
I'm not, all I'm saying is I'm not willing to commit one way or the other, yes, no, no matter what, unless I see what it is.
You can see the
That's the way
proposed
the board
language
runs.
when,
We don't commit to something that we have not seen and we have not.
I'm not asking for a commitment to
When the
anything.
language is there, we get the board packet for discussion and for voting. We have the
Right.
opportunity to look at it and we can vote whichever way we want on it, right? As a board.
We can vote, but I think the idea of whatever the language says, we should have the opportunity to discuss whether we agree with whatever the attorneys come up with. We shouldn't, I cannot say one way or the other.
So it's not one.
I'm not
person's
concerned
decision,
about
right?
that.
Like it's a board decision, and if the majority wants
But
to
I
move
thi-
forward, then we move
I
forward.
think Julie's
That's
asking
how
for.
it-
Well, and also
commitment to
if
vote
somebody's
on-
unclear or uncomfortable about the language that's presented, they're more than welcome to ask that it be tabled with a consensus majority. We don't have to take action on it. I'm asking that the ability to take action, anybody who's not comfortable with the vote, they can abstain, they can vote no, or they can vote yes. We have several options as a voting mechanism. We will have the language drafted by the attorneys before next meeting in our board packets like we do with everything else.
Which is standard procedure that we
And-
followed for any policy modification. So I'm okay with moving forward that way.
I'm okay with moving forward that way.
I'm hesitant in terms of what we are trying to achieve here and the haste here, because I'm reading our policy and we have a 2-year term. So we always have the opportunity to make changes outside of that 2 years. If you want to do something within those 2 years, there really has to be a good reason for us to do that. And that's, I think, is the intent of that. But what exactly is the reason? So it's just not like we will
Well,
replace an
but right
officer.
now, we're discussing the policy. If we change the policy, if we choose to take action later on, that would be the time for discussion of the reasons. Right now, we are discussing the policy. We aren't talking about reasons for removing, because right now, removing anybody is not on the agenda.
I disagree. You just mentioned something about dereliction of duty. Well, you're qualifying. Well, we need to know what the qualification is.
Well, that will be discussed at time of removal, not for policy.
So
That
the
doesn't
policy
seem-
has to
that
be
seems kinda
clear on
backwards
what
to me.
the,
Why wouldn't we
what the
discuss the
reason
reasons why
for
someone's being
removal
terminated
is.
in the policy when we're making it? This is
And
the reason
they're not being terminated, though. They're just
for removal.
being set back to a regular board member. So we're not stripping anybody of their elected duty.
I understand, but.
But
still,
so we are, I
There
think
needs-
that we're going to be at an impasse with this back and forth here. So I think with the
it's similar
consensus.
to our last board meeting where I wanted more time to look at something, but there was a majority vote, there was a majority consensus to move forward, and we move forward. I don't see how this is any different from that.
Decision making, right? Here we are talking about policy that is codified. We are
But
talking
that is
something very different.
again, it's no different from any board procedure. If we want to move forward with the majority, we move forward. That's
So
what I
again,
was
I'm-
told,
It's supposed to
right.
be
That's how it is.
Majority consensus is the term.
Majority consensus is what we were told. I mean, there can be no votes, and there can be opposition to it, and we can move forward that way.
Do we need to
Right.
go around again for majority consensus? Is there still confusion?
So the question is, what are we consenting to?
I am
Are we
consenting to,
considering a
cons-
change in policy next board meeting?
I'm considering, and consenting to, a vote to change the current board policy, which is why this board policy is up for discussion at this meeting. So we are discussing it now. I am asking for action, and I believe I have majority consensus to move forward.
So,
It's up for discussion now. This is the discussion.
yep. And I just want to be clear, not only legally, are we do we have some guidance on how and what can be in this policy? But
I-
also how we can implement a policy, because the rules are we do a policy over 2 readings. That gives the public an opportunity to also hear the policy and make comments, so that when we come back and we vote, board members have an opportunity to hear from the public on what the changes are to those policies. So I want to have confirmation.
What
that
policy is that you're referring to, that's how we do it?
That's how we always do policies. We have a first reading and then a second reading and adoption.
Is there
Okay, well,
something
if
we
you,
can get from the Illinois State Board of Education too, that would help us, guide us in this policy decision?
well, so legal was spoken to, and legal is going to be drafting the official language for the policy.
I think
I
legal
understand,
will
but is
draft
there
it if
anything
we
that,
ask
you
them
know, we
to.
could refer to Illinois State Board of Education and their recommendations for this.
I don't believe that there are any. The election
I'd
of
like to- I'd
offices
like to look
internally.
See if there is.
Okay, I mean, but the policy was up for review, so there was an opportunity to look beforehand. And again, I believe we have majority consensus to move forward. The question being is there a board policy that says that there has to be a reading and public comment before the change? And if so, there could probably be public comment in a reading and then an action item, and that can weigh into the decisions of board members.
So I'm more thinking from a president perspective. This is just one policy we are talking about. And my concern is not about what is the specific language we want to incorporate. My concern is that we say that this is the policy I want to change and I want it as a vote at the next meeting. And we can then practically say that I want every policy to be put for vote at the next meeting theoretically. And that creates a whole set of challenges that have we adequately vetted what we are trying to do here from a procedural perspective. So what this would do, something like this, is today I as a board member come in and says, I don't like this policy, I want it changed. It doesn't matter what the change we are talking about. The issue is I have something in my mind as a change and I said, I want to bring it to the vote. I'll take it to the legal will draft something and I'll put it for vote. And I think that's the concern I'm raising here, that we have to be deliberate and thoughtful about what we are trying to achieve here, because this sets a precedent for any and every policy that we would implement.
Not really. So
That's-
while I hear your concern, I disagree with you. I mean, it's a procedural step, right? Like you bring it for discussion,
Exactly.
right? You look for consensus whether we are okay with changing the policy. You look for a majority consensus.
Yeah, we
That's
don't
the
know
stand.
what to
Hang
change
on,
to.
I'm not done, right? Like
Absolutely.
I respectfully waited for you to finish before I said
My
something,
apologies.
right? So the procedure is you bring it up for discussion, for review. Doesn't matter what it is, right? Like as a board, this is a fairly standard procedure that we bring in policies for discussion. It's up for, if there's a majority consensus that we would like to look for a change in the policy, it goes for a change in the policy, it gets reviewed. Legal obviously weighs in and says the language is okay and this is what it is. It comes in for a vote and we go for a vote. There is nothing different about this from any other procedure that we follow as a board.
Okay.
So that's the common thing, right? Like someone can have, and you have the time for discussion. You get the board packets. That's where you review. You have your concerns, you bring it. And we've always had the procedure where people can bring in their concerns and then we vote. We again don't need to have a 7-0 vote on it, right? We just need to bring it for a vote and voice our concerns and then move forward. That's standard procedure. That's no different from how we've operated as a board. So
Will there be a discussion before the action item at next month's meeting?
Yeah, there's always
There's always
standard
discussion,
procedure.
yeah.
I mean,
So
that question is just standard, right? Like there is discussion and then it's put for vote, right? It's on the voting agenda. Every item that we vote for always has the option for discussion. That's no different from any other thing that we vote on, any other procedure that we follow.
Having majority consensus, and I've done different boards, so if this is not the correct procedure, somebody please, I would like to move to close discussion on this item, having board consensus to move forward.
I'm not sure we have board consensus.
Majority consensus.
I'm not sure we have that. I haven't
I have heard from 4 members.
You have, I have not.
I mean,
You're
we're
one
all
board
here.
member, I'm a board member. I have not heard. I'd like to
I've heard
hear
from
again
4.
based on the
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe you were only listening to selective board members, but I've heard from 4 board members, so we can just double check because I've heard from 4.
I would like to do.
Mhm.
I would like to not have an action item next month. I'd like another month after we discuss it.
I'm okay with having an action item next month.
I would like an action item.
I want an action item next month, and I also believe firmly that this district is seeking confidence in leadership, and this district needs confidence in leadership now more than ever.
I'm fine with the action.
Thank you.
I'm fine with the action as long as we have an opportunity to discuss and that we
Mhm.
have an opportunity to confirm the process for adopting a board policy.
And that's my thought, that I would like to review this more carefully as to what we are trying to bring forth to the vote before bringing it. So a clear outline policy that can be reviewed carefully, and then at some point, definitely it can be on the board. So I'm not against changing any policies. I'm just voicing my desire to see that we follow a more well-articulated process, because this becomes a process for all the policies going forward.
So to confirm, so with board consensus, I now have board direction. And so with board direction, we'll take proposed language, which I will then provide to legal for them to vet and review and ensure that it meets all legal qualifications. And I will also seek clarification just on the voting procedure, that can we propose a policy, discuss the policy, and then vote on the policy in the same meeting. I'll verify that with legal.
That's the right process to.
Okay.
Moving on.
Anything else? Let's move into a budget hearing. This is to schedule a budget. This is not a budget hearing. This is to schedule a budget hearing. Mr. Stanley, you have some information.
Yes. So by law, you have to have a budget hearing before you can adopt your budget. And so we target a June adoption for our budget. And so based on that and all the kind of legal timelines and everything, I think there are 2 options to look at really. And so the question is, when would you like to have the budget hearing? Because we require notice in the paper and things like that. So you could either have the hearing at the June board meeting, which would be the same night as we would target adoption for the board meeting, or you can have a hearing at a special meeting, because we don't have a committee meeting scheduled on the June 15th, which would be that Monday before the June 22nd board meeting. And so there's timelines there, but that's essentially the options available. And so whichever.
And we can have a hearing and adopt a budget on the same meeting. There's no reason we can't. It's just to give us the budget hearing and to give us some opportunity to think through what we learned.
Yes.
Is the benefit of having another, having that happen before the adoption meeting. Who's got any thoughts on that? One way or the other?
What's Dan's recommendation?
Yeah, I was just going to say, what would your recommendation be?
There are pros and cons of doing both of them. Probably the most important one is if 4 of you are not available on the June 15th, this doesn't matter. So the first question is, even is June 15th a plausible date that is not already scheduled.
So this would be an additional special meeting.
Typically, when we've had hearings on different nights, the idea is to give the public multiple opportunities to view and to give comment on things before final adoption. And so, if you have a hearing at a different date, you're allow an opportunity then, and then you can allow another opportunity. The week later at the adoption. If you do it all the same night, it's all kind of self-contained into that night. So it depends. Sometimes you can get a lot of feedback. Sometimes you can get zero feedback. It kind of depends. It's not a consistent, predictable occurrence. So I think it would just depend on what your preference is. Either way, it's not like June 15th is going to be the first time seeing the budget. We'll have at the May board, we'll have a tentative budget, which will be essentially a finalized form of the budget. It's just we take from May till June to kind of tweak stuff or double check our math and make sure we don't have any errors or things like that. So there will be a lot of notice in terms of the information for the board and for the public as well.
I'm available June 15th, but obviously, like you said, you have to make sure everybody is, and I'm open to either option.
I'm same.
I am not available on
I-
June 15th.
I am not.
All right,
either.
so one not. You said
I'm not.
I'm available. The question that I have though, like just to confirm, because I know I heard multiple options, just to confirm on June 15th, we are not voting for the budget. It's a budget hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
we need to have a quorum present to have the meeting, but June 22nd is where we need to be available to vote on it.
That's targeting the June adoption, which is where
Yep.
that's been our goal, and that's what we've been doing. And again, the budget hearing is very similar to the levy hearing, right? It doesn't have to be on a different night. It can be on the same night as adoption. So this is the opportunity for the public to give comment on the budget at a designated spot.
Dan, I appreciate you giving us two options. I know that setting another date, June 15th, is cumbersome and difficult for some of our members, but I'm also reminded that 90% of our revenue comes from the property taxes of our residents. And I just feel that as a courtesy to the public, that we designate a specific date. Even if there's not a lot of feedback, I think it's an expression that we want their input because this district's running on their monies.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we've had it on different dates before.
So I support option B.
so we do have 4 who say they're able to attend, so it's just a matter of what the board as a whole wants to do. Like I said, I'm good either way. I mean, if members who aren't able to attend really want to attend, I mean, I guess that we would go with option A.
I personally, if I don't know I'm still tentative for that particular date, but option B seems to be, as Doug pointed out, it gives the public an opportunity to also contribute to the process, and I think that's useful. So yeah, we can theoretically say that, yes, hear it and adopt it the same day, but this gives us a little bit more, as a community, more time to look at it carefully and then make those decisions of adopting it.
Yeah, and they're listed A and B, not in any order of preference. They just whichever one I wrote first. So
It's fine. The majority wants to do option B. I think we can do
we'll
that.
target the 15th, and then if we
It's really there's not a lot for us to do besides be here to listen and.
we just need a quorum to be
Yeah,
able to start
that's the
the
only thing on
meeting.
the
So I guess I would say, because we'll be publishing the notice in the paper no later than May 15th. So if somehow we know we will not have a quorum on that date, then we can't have the hearing on that date. So I would just, I guess, ask if you're aware that something comes up that would cause us not to be able to have 4 members here, that we can pivot at that point to
To the
change the
22nd. Yeah. Okay, we can do that.
Okay.
Easy enough. Budget preliminary updates. Back to you, Dan.
Yeah, we have a pretty simple update. Preliminary, we have our revenues are completed for the budget. They're very similar to what we had in our projections a few months ago. So there's not very much change there. And then all the other side of it really kind of has depending on our staffing plans. That is, if you recall, 71% of our budget is on the people that we employ. And so I need to know how many people we're employing in order to be able to budget that big bulk. So I'm processing it based on that that number of staff, which is also part of an agenda item later on today. But just FYI, that's what we're in process for, and we're working with departments right now on their various budgets. We're going that, so we'll be ready with a tentative budget for our May 18th meeting, which will have a lot of information for it. Just so you know that there's going to be a lot of information coming.
Okay. Textbook adoption requests.
Yep, that's me. Each year, the district presents any new textbooks that are being adopted. Textbooks also mean any large, like digital resources that we would use as sort of the core curriculum focus for the course. This year, we have 4 new textbooks that are being brought forward for the board to look at. You are not voting on this tonight. This is just
Right.
to make you aware of these things. You will vote at them at the next meeting.
May.
But the list is attached, and if there are any immediate questions, I could answer those.
I appreciate the heads up on this early. How does this compare to prior years in terms of the volume of things that we're changing?
The volume in terms of the 4 textbooks being changed is very typical. This is in response to 3 new classes that are being offered, actually 4. So all 4 are new courses. The dual credit speech is an adoption of the textbook that is used at CLC. The AP Business Principles is a brand new course, so we need new textbook for that. Economics is a new course. We've had AP Economics, but we're offering a college prep semester course we have to find a text for, and then the dual credit Intro to Education. So those are all brand new courses which require new texts. The other ones that are there are updated editions of existing texts. Our textbook budget kind of fluctuates from year to year, depending on which courses have required new texts. That can be very difficult to predict. Sometimes changes to AP requires new textbooks to be created, or our teachers will identify that there are new textbooks that have been published. They will go through a process of review, and then they would make recommendations for those changes. So this is in terms of new textbooks, this is a fairly small amount of new books being brought forward.
Okay. Anyone have questions or comments?
A clarification. I was just looking at the table here. I'm just curious if you can help me out here. Why do we have a shipping cost of $2,400 for Anat and Physio, which is an ebook? I'm just curious about that.
Which one are you looking at? The line
the
for human physiology?
Yes.
I'll need to look into that. Not sure if it's strictly just ebooks. Sometimes those are accompanied by ancillary materials. So I will need to find out the answer for that.
Yeah. Just also surprised by the shipping and handling costs for many of these books. They just seem crazy.
Yeah, good call. Anyone else?
What do we do with the old copies of the physical textbooks? Do we recycle them? Do we give them away?
I think it depends. Some of them, like we would keep, I know like some textbooks teachers keep in classrooms as references. Others, I believe, are recycled, donated to other schools, disposed of. Yep.
Okay, anyone else? Moving on, PE exemption process. I'm sure some folks want to hear about this. Who's taking this one? Tom?
Yep. Yeah, so we were, this is an update of the conversation we had in February around our PE exemption process. So let me see if this is working. Here we go. So at that time, this was something that we had addressed. We talked about that we wanted to take a look to ensure our PE exemption process, that we're in compliance with state and district policy. And we wanted to take some opportunity to identify some potential improvements to our PE exemption process. And those were the key questions that we were taking a look at. Back in February, I told you the next steps that the district would do is we were going to conduct some focus groups with students to kind of dig in a little bit to our PE exemption process and some of the things that we're working with that or we're not. We were going to review our policies and some of our practices to try to determine if there could be greater alignment created, as well as develop any recommendations for the board in terms of some of the changes that we may want to make to our practices moving forward. So I returned to you tonight with 3 basic recommendations for changes to our District 128 PE practices. The first one that we'll talk about is we are recommending that we create one standardized exemption process for D128 student athletes. This will be a little bit of a change. There were slightly different practices in place at Vernon Hills and Libertyville. And so we're coming back tonight with the recommendation for one standardized process. We also, in this process of reviewing our PE practices, discovered that we were out of alignment with some grading practices at Vernon Hills. And so we want to talk about how we're updating and changing that. And then we also heard some of our community and students asking for clarity on what other types of PE exemptions were possible for students. From a non-athletic request point of view, the state does allow students to request exemptions for non-athletic reasons. And so we have some clarity and some updated guidelines and administrative guidance on that area of our work. So specifically with exemptions, the major area that we are adjusting is that the return to class timelines for our district and the expectations in the schools varied by not only sport, but level of sport and the school practices. So that made it difficult for students to know exactly when they were supposed to return to class. It created situations where students were being potentially disciplined for not returning to class at the appropriate interval time when their sport ended. And it created a lot of work and confusion for staff, keeping track of which students were exempt and which were not. So one of the recommendations and the responses that we have created is a standardized District 128 process that in the fall would create 2 return to class dates. One date follows the season that ends early, which is boys and girls golf. The second date would be in place after all the other sports in the fall end. These dates were set to be approximately a week after the first round of the regional tournament. So we know that all of our athletes will compete in regionals. If they were not to advance from regionals, they would have a week then to alter their schedules, kind of get used to being done with their sport before returning to PE. They also would have the same date. So all athletes from sophomore JV varsity would be returning to class on the same day, so that way the teachers would be better prepared to accept all of the students coming back. It would be easier for teachers to lesson plan and have their units set, knowing which day students are coming back instead of students sporadically returning to class at different times. We set 2 dates for the winter as well. That's because boys and girls bowling ends much earlier than other winter sports. So we have an early return date and a later winter return date. This would be the same date at Libertyville and Vernon Hills High School, and something that we would be making clear for all students and families to know when the athletic seasons began. And then finally, in the spring, we had a difference in practice. Spring athletes at Vernon Hills historically have returned to class. Spring athletes at Libertyville had not. And so because the spring season for the majority of sports, virtually all sports, ends so late in the school year, we are going to have a consistent policy that spring athletes do not return to PE. Many of them, their season goes after the school year ends anyway. So it's kind of a moot point.
Are you wanting questions and feedback like as we go on each slide, or would you like us to wait till the end?
I think it'd be best to wait till the end. It's meant to be a very short presentation, and then I can take questions. So the second area is VHHS grading. We had some practices in place that were designed and very thoughtfully designed and well intended. But when we dug into different state guidance around PE, we discovered that our PE, using the fitness test scores and using output from heart rate monitors as part of a student grade, is not something that is allowed by our state code. And so we wanted to make the adjustments to make sure those were aligned properly. So starting immediately, the PE fitness testing at Vernon Hills, you get graded and for participating in it, but your actual score, your results, can't be used as part of your overall course grade. And heart rate monitors will still be continued to be used. Students can learn how to use heart rate monitors. They can use them to reflect on their level of activity, but we can no longer tie a student output on a heart rate monitor to a specific score for that day in class. And so those changes are being made, and VHHS administration is updating students and parents about those changes. And then finally, we heard that there was unclear and inconsistent communication around non-athletic PE waivers. And so many students and families might not have been aware that there were ability to request a PE waiver for a non-athletic reason. And that is something that was very rare. So our schools didn't necessarily have clear guidance about that. What we did was we looked at that. We created a very clear guidelines for this, as well as administrative guidance, so that administrators at Vernon Hills or Libertyville who get these requests in the future from students would have a much more standardized process for reviewing them, verifying them, and ultimately approving them. Right now, it would be very subjective based on which school is getting the review, and there's not a lot of administrative guidance for a principal to make a decision. We're outlining that so that in the future, our administrative team knows how to process those, and we can not guarantee, but we can work to ensure much greater equity between the way those decisions are being made at each school. So the next steps for us, as I indicated, the grading adjustments, that work has begun. And we will immediately be working at Vernon Hills to update the grading procedures and do work with students who might have been affected by those grades. It's not in all of our PE classes, but it was in certain ones. So we have to make those adjustments in those classes. Andy, Dr. Young is working with the PE department and counseling department on that. PE exemption, in the updated information will be shared with students and families and our athletic department moving forward next year. And then our non-athletic PE exemptions, we're working to make sure our building administration and our student services departments are aware of that, and that will be in place moving forward. So at this point, I'm happy to take any questions.
Julie, you had a question?
I'll wait and see if anybody else wants to go. I've spoken a lot already.
Anybody else?
So I'll start. So for how many years had Vernon Hills High School been using illegal grading practices?
The grading practice for the standard fitness test goes back probably at least 10 years. It was put in place when the state went to student growth as part of the educator's evaluation process. And so the way that some of the PE classes were determining student growth was on the fitness test. That was a test that students took at the beginning of the year and the end of the year. It was a way we could monitor student growth in that. And that was something that was at that time used. Over that time was when some of the state guidance came out and why we have to adjust that process.
And then how did Vernon Hills and Libertyville end up with different practices? Because it's my understanding Libertyville was in compliance, correct?
Yes. We as a district have a history of both schools and departments being able to work to determine, there has been a longer history of building autonomy around curriculum and grading practices. We are working over the last few years to bring greater alignment to that. But over the years, Vernon Hills had kept their kind of process of using the fitness test for student growth. Libertyville had moved away from that and administers the fitness test, used it as part of student reflection, but didn't use it as part of the student growth.
Okay.
I don't know when and exactly when and why that decision at Libertyville was made.
Okay, anybody else? Because I have more questions, but I want to.
I just wanted to follow up on that one real quick. Sorry. So you say it was about 10 years that we've been doing this. Was the rule always in place that we shouldn't use the heart monitor data, or was
Heart
it
rate-
changed, or did we just misinterpret it? What?
Yeah. I don't know when, because I wasn't in this position and looking at state PE policy 10 years ago. So I don't know exactly when the state guidelines changed around fitness testing. Heart rate monitors are a gray area. There's nothing in the state code or guidelines that talk specifically about heart rate monitors. And many schools around us use heart rate monitors and have various levels of grading with them. For us, when we looked at this and said, if we are moving away from using student fitness testing results as part of a grade, it could be argued that heart rate monitors are a type of fitness testing. And therefore, we felt we should move away from that as part of the student grade as well. So I would definitely not say that there's clarity in the state guidelines around the use of heart rate monitors being tied to a grade, but it is very clear that fitness testing itself cannot be. And it's our interpretation that heart rate monitors could be seen as a fitness test. So we feel it's better not to include that in a student grade.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
Yeah, it is a little disturbing that we were, involving ourselves in an illegal practice. And I get that mistakes can be made. But, there was topics brought up about physiological responses, dictating grades, and discussions were had. And some of the answers were just, well, it is what it is and things aren't going to change. And it wasn't until somebody said, well, opinions are opinions, but it's actually illegal. So I think that we need to be doing a better dig into some of these things when concerns are being brought up, instead of just brushing them off, and it'll serve us in the long run a lot better.
Yeah, I struggle with the term illegal. There's state code, and we always want to be aligned with state code, but we are audited. We review our practices all the time to make sure that we have alignment with state code, and we find things sometimes that are out of alignment. And when we find those, we work to correct them and put us back into alignment with it. This was one small area of our practice that was part of a few PE classes, not a systemic across the board at Vernon Hills High School. It was a legacy practice that was in place. And I agree, when we find that those things are wrong, we absolutely want to change them and get in alignment with the policy.
I don't think it's a small thing when it's 80% of a student's grade. That's not a small percentage.
And in addition, so if we remove the word illegal, if you're uncomfortable with it, we can just call it simply a violation of school code.
Or out of
Um,
compliance.
Out of compliance, either way. I think that there were flags and that this topic was brought up and that they were brushed off before we had more of a legal opinion. So I just think that when those concerns are brought up, that we need to be doing a deeper dive if they really sound like they make a lot of sense.
I would consider it an operationally gross oversight that simply isn't acceptable to be brushed off.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I know that we started looking at this fall, and we are bringing forward these recommendations now for these changes.
So I do have another question, just looking at it from like a very forward-looking perspective, but also looking at there has been an impact from this policy on the grades of students, right? Where we know that this practice is out of compliance and it has affected current student grades. What are we doing to fix that?
Yes, I'm going to let Andy start to speak about the current student grades.
Yeah, so for the current students, those families were notified on Friday about what the next steps would be, and if they wanted, if students or parents wanted a review of their students' grade relative to the impact of fitness testing or heart rate monitor use. With regards to historical, so students that are sophomores, juniors, or seniors, or et cetera, who have already been through those classes, I will have a communication for families coming up on Wednesday to talk about those possible steps.
And it is per policy and guidelines, students can always request grade reviews. So we'll make students aware of that. One of the things that can create a grade change for students who may need one is a review of their grade and determination. Was this based on a policy that was out of alignment, or was it based on their other factors in their course? And then if we discover that a student has had a grade that was miscalculated due to this policy, we would be changing it to reflect their performance without this policy in place.
To me, it looks like we should be looking at it more proactively than just asking them to review it, because if we are truly talking about being student-centric, right, we know there is a policy that, or a practice that is out of compliance. It wasn't the student's decision to follow that practice. It was our decision. When we figured out, I think we need to have a way to make it right, then ask them to potentially look at an email, understand the impact, understand that there might have been a grade change, and then to request a review. Then when we know that we've caused the problem, we can proactively look at fixing it.
Mhm.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
And I think I agree there with Mithilesh that one way for us to again look at it, as he suggested, is look at the grades. We know what is the breakdown of the distribution of grades, and let's see that if any of those things would change automatically, and then we proactively provide the parent that because of this change, I would imagine that there would be a bump in the grade, and most parents, maybe not, I don't know. But whatever is that change, the grade would, the new grade would be this. And would you like to discuss this further? Could be then the step 2 of the process. But we can probably proactively look at all the grades that may be impacted and what would be the new grade because of that change.
We have the data to determine that, right? It
I
isn't,
will need
the
to check,
students
but
don't have the data to determine that. We would be the ones determining it. So we can do that step proactively rather than reactively and case by case basis, because we are leaving it up to their judgment to see whether it was impacted or not. They don't know it. They don't have the data in front of them. We have it. So I think it's unfair for them to put it all on them to review and then take a look at it.
Okay. We can look and determine what type of systemic review can be done to see if that helps us identify students who grades may need to be adjusted. In the meantime, students can individually come forward as well while we do that review.
And Milosh, I support what you're saying, but I do think that most students are aware of,
They know what they're.
they
yeah.
know, but I am absolutely in agreement with a proactive approach.
Does anyone else have questions? I have some more.
Oh, I do too, but next.
Okay.
Mhm.
In regards to the PE waivers, was the requirement that students return to PE mid-semester ever evaluated as a variable, or was it always treated as a fixed constraint?
The when you say mid-semester, do you mean mid first
Or the-
semester or mid-year?
Well, the waiver, like there was a return day, right?
Yes.
So was that ever treated as a variable, or was that just treated as the restraint that kids would be returning to PE at some point?
Yes, there was discussion about returning to PE at some point. There was discussion about end of semester. So if you were a fall athlete, like spring athletes do not return to class. They are out for the spring semester. But in the fall and the winter, those athletes do return to class. And when we talked with students, some of the discussion was, do we need to be out for the entire semester? What would it look like to return? Right now, students in the schools right now return 2 or 3 days after their sport ends. And so we looked at all variables from continuing that practice all the way up to potentially being out for the semester.
So then in the focus groups, were the students directly asked whether they would prefer a semester-based exemption that allows them to take possibly an academic course, stay in study hall, in place of PE? Was that
No,
asked?
we did not ask about taking an additional course in lieu of PE. We don't believe that that is possible at this time for us. And so we did not offer that as an alternative to students. There was some discussion that I had with some students about that. I spoke to our board reps about that question, but that was not part of the larger focus group. The larger focus group was about PE exemptions and returning to class when the exemptions ended and making that process better for students.
Sorry, really quick, can you explain why it's not possible?
Well, there's, to us, when we look at it, the guidance says students return to PE after their course ends. And so for us as a district, we believe our students should return to PE. Secondly, we see this as a larger systemic change of practice that could be potentially an equity issue, as you would have students who are exempt from class for athletic reasons being able to take additional classes that students who are not athletes would not be able to take. And so from our understanding of state guidelines, we know that there's variability in practice, but the vast majority of high schools that we look at have students returning to class and not opening it up for students to select classes outside of their PE.
Okay, because I thought that the language said for them to return, as practical, but that if they're enrolled in another class, then it wouldn't be practical for them to return that semester. So that would fall within the guidelines. And then go ahead. It'll come back to me. Wait, I do know.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, and so when we talk about equity within class selection and all those type of things, I mean, we also have 0-hour gym so that students can open up class time, but there's no transportation, so that could also be considered an equity issue. That 0-hour gym is for privilege and not for everyone. Just putting that out there.
Well, and the same could be said about summer school as well, as making that a requirement. Because some students, they have to work, they have to watch siblings. Summer school is not an option for them. So making summer school and 0-hour PE, that puts some, students in positions where they possibly aren't eligible for the non-athletic waivers because you've made that a constraint. Because does the Illinois code say that a student has to take summer school or 0-hour PE?
I don't know about summer school PE being a
Well,
requirement.
but in the requirements for the non-athletic exemptions, part of the criteria that's in there is, asking, has the student considered summer school?
Yes.
Has the student considered 0 hour?
Right.
Well,
but it's not mandatory. It would just be as we work with a student who's asking for a PE exemption. One of the things we would say in our district is 0 hour an opportunity for you? Is summer school an opportunity? If it is an opportunity, that may serve a student in lieu of needing a PE exemption, but it's not a mandatory requirement.
Athletes that are in 0 hour, can they waive?
Athletes who are in 0
So
hour.
if there's an athlete taking 0 hour PE, can they waive?
I
Or
believe,
be exempt for the semester or however long they are their sport?
I don't believe, I'd have to verify this. We offer so few PE classes in
They're
0
saying no.
So at Vernon Hills,
I'm in CrossFit,
you cannot.
at least.
Yeah.
Ones that are available for 0 hour are not exempt.
Right. And it's part of the reason for that is probably because those spaces are limited. And so it's for students who need that to fill their schedule.
Okay.
And then, see, it's getting late. I start to lose it a bit. And so, I think that we, asked to see more flexibility, which is what the law allows. I feel like what we're seeing is more rigid. And in addition to looking at some of these return dates, I mean, just having a son who's a soccer player, he's almost out of here. So this doesn't really affect him much. He's older. A return date of the 9th, for example, that could be the next day after his sport ends.
No, he wouldn't have to return. He would be exempt. And then he would have, so depending on that date that was set based on the final week of the football, after the first week of football playoffs. So if there was a sport that was still playing, those athletes would be exempt until their season ended, and then they would have a week to return to class. So it wouldn't be the next day. We think that this policy, we did not look as a variable of students enrolling in courses. We, at this point in time, as a district, that is a huge structural change for us that would require a lot of review with staff, with counseling. There's all kinds of institutional issues that would go along with that in terms of students who ultimately don't go out for the sport. Then do they drop that class and have to return to their PE? So there's a number of issues. What we've done, though, is take a look at our existing PE exemption practices, and we believe we've created much greater clarity for our students, much more consistency, and that we have really built out an understanding that students can request individual exemptions for non-athletic needs. And that has been kind of expanded as our focus as part of our district. So I think this has offered our students a lot of new clarity and guidance on when they can be exempt and when they have to return to class and what types of issues would warrant a PE exemption for them.
Okay, I'm disappointed that we're not looking to move forward, even if it can't, be a specific policy change now to allow children to take, students to take, those extra courses. I think there's language that can be crafted and added in, such as, because we're only talking about juniors and seniors here, that they have to have participated in the sport before. They do have to try out, in the first week, if they didn't try out for their sport, then they return to PE. And I think that those numbers are going to be minimal.
Well,
I
and
don't
there's-
think that we're going to see a big, I don't think we're talking about hundreds of students here, but I think that the impact of allowing kids to take extra courses, which either are good for their mental health while they're in their sports. So we're not talking about just, they're in their athletic time for the majority of the semester, maybe taking an arts, or other classes that they believe are going to help them give them a competitive edge when applying to colleges. Even if it's not, this is what we're doing right now, that this is where we're looking to go.
How many weeks are we talking in that
5 or
they would be in this course?
5 or which course? PE?
No.
Or even
the
just
additional
extending
courses.
like
No,
study
they
hall.
would be in the additional course the entire semester then. That's what we're talking. And instead of returning to PE, to having a study hall and returning to PE in about for 5 weeks. They're able to take an additional
That's
course.
5 weeks.
So that's just my opinion.
And there's,
Um,
I mean, there's other schools that do this, so I understand how this may take time to implement, but the fact that we didn't even look into or ask the students if they would be interested, I found that problematic, especially because you didn't do a survey to families or students. You just did the focus groups. So you don't have any concrete data that, tells us the interest.
Well, when I came here in February, I told the board I was going to do focus groups. We did not talk about a community-wide survey at that point. We have to be thoughtful about that, because one of the things the district frequently hears is we're over surveying our kids and our families. So that is something in the future that if we as a district believe we want to gather feedback on, something we may certainly do. But the plan that was presented in February was executed. And we did not ask students about enrolling in another course, because as a district, we did not feel that that is an option for us at this time.
And then when we talk about the word practical, who determines the definition of practical? Because that's left up to the schools to decide. So how was that determined?
Well, that's determined by us as an administration in terms of what would practical be in terms of returning to class. The guidance for us is students return to class, and we've extended that timeline for the vast majority of students. We also look at all of our peer schools and their interpretations of that, and virtually nearly every other school in the state, other than the 2 that have been cited by the board, are operating in the way we are.
All right. So I guess, so do you expect there to be measurable improvements for students with this, these new guidelines? Beyond the increased predictability for the system? I mean, what's the benefit for the students? Just clarity?
Well, one is the clarity. 2 is for students that they would have, many of them will have more time being exempt from their class than they have had historically. So many of them, some of them are going to go to 3 weeks after their season ends versus 3 days for them to transition back to class. The other thing is for students who need non-athletic waivers, much more clarity and consistency in that process and how that is understood and how that is processed at the administrative level.
All right. And then how will these the expectations be communicated to students for, when they're supposed to be returning?
Yeah. We do a lot of communication with students in PE classes about the exemption process, what they have to do in order to be exempt, and when they need to return. We also do all school communication about that, and our athletic coaches are also communicating about that. But that is certainly something that we can look to even make more clear. But I talked to most of the students in the focus groups. They felt that they were hearing when they're in class about how to be exempt. They were getting tons of information about that. The confusion came with when they had to return to class. And so this will help create very clear guidelines and dates that we can promote and help students see and understand.
Okay. And then will there be like punitive messages in these communications, or is that going to be taken out?
Yeah, I believe it would be aligned with our values and the way we speak to students about, like, hey, your exemption's ending. This is what you need to do. Return to class. So we would try to make that positive and supportive.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Maybe again a clarification. So again, you have a policy that's in place that that you want to implement. My question actually is, and it offers a lot of avenues for exemptions. I think one of the things that I've heard from the board and also the community that they want to take more courses and things like that, and that's why they want this exemption. And my understanding is, reading through this carefully word by word, that there is adequate opportunity for every student to at least seek the exemption they want, provided they provide the evidence. What I would like to understand is, given that it's quite broad in terms of the avenue students have, what could be an example of when an exemption will be denied to the student? Let's say a student wants to take a course, let's say they are in the football program, it's more intense and stuff. What would be that situation where that exemption will be denied to the student? Is there any?
Yes. So not for athletics. If a student is in IHSA, school sanctioned athletics, they are exempt. And then it would be about a student who's not in a sport, but says, maybe I want to be exempt because of a college entrance requirement, or I want to be exempt because if I don't get an exemption, I won't be able to graduate high school. So that's the where we as a district would have to review that. The high school one is very easy because we can count credits and we know what the student's schedule and if they would be able to graduate. The college one is fuzzy and it's gray. And so what we would be asking our students to do is work with us to help us understand their post-secondary plans, why they need to take a course that they need. Because just saying, well, I need to take science is something that we can provide during the day. So it would probably have to be a little bit of a level up in terms of why this request is so important to this particular student and their particular career or post-secondary planning. And then that's where our counselor and our principal team would make decisions about either granting that request based on how reasonable that is or on denying that request because other options exist.
So then, if I understand it right, this current policy as being proposed provides that avenue that satisfies what student is seeking.
Yes. So the students have always had that option. It's part of the state code. What we're doing is making it much more clear in how to go about getting that and standardizing that request across our district and providing forms and administrative guidance that are the same at each building so that we can be assured if a student makes that request at Vernon Hills, it's treated the same way it's made at Libertyville High School.
Have we ever approved a non-athletic PE exemption?
I can speak for me as a principal. In my 15 years as principal in 2 schools, yes, it is very rare and minimal. So a lot of times it would be for students who are involved in something that requires significant amount of travel, for example, are ones that I can think of off the top of my head. But I don't have a district record of any non-athletic PE exemption log and where we've approved them and where we haven't.
And is that because of the awareness or because they didn't meet the requirements?
No, I got when I was sitting in the principal office, I had minimal requests for this. And I think it's because honestly, maybe awareness had something to do with it, but the vast majority of our students are able to access their post-secondary plans and move on to their colleges without needing to exempt from PE.
Is that because they take 0 hour?
No, we have very few students who take 0 hour.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you for that information, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that as time goes on and it gets implemented. We are now up to the consent vote agenda. Is there any board member that wishes to remove any item from the consent vote agenda? Nope. Okay, hearing none. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Poland, so moved.
Second, Flegel.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Deschmok.
Aye.
Eagle.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We have 5 action items. The first one is the Ombudsman service agreement. Can we have a motion to approve option 2 of the Ombudsman Alternative Education Services Agreement for the 26-27 school year as presented?
Deshmukh so moved.
Kotwal second.
Okay, any discussion, conversation? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Batson.
Aye.
Deschmok.
Aye.
Legal.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. 6B, intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Libertyville. Can I have a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement between Community High School District 128 and Village of Libertyville regarding shared facilities?
Kotwal so moved.
Poland, second.
Any discussion, conversation? Okay, I think this is a good move. We've been good collaborative partners with them. This just sort of solidifies that relationship, so we appreciate that. Can we have a roll call, please?
Deschmok.
Aye.
Legal.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye, motion passes. Next is an intergovernmental agreement for deaf and hard of hearing itinerant with District 120. And I believe we've had some conversation about this for some time. I'll first ask for a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement for deaf and hard of hearing itinerant with District 120.
Poland, so moved.
Kotwal second.
Okay, any discussion? I think this is a great opportunity anytime we can share some services and get students additional services with minimal difficulty. That's good. Roll call, please.
Legal.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Deschmok.
Aye.
Okay, we have the annual ESP staffing report. Get us started. Let's have a motion to approve the annual education support professionals staffing report as presented.
Deshmukh so moved.
Kotwal second.
Okay. Any comments, questions? I know we've all seen this. Okay, roll call, please.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Deschmok.
Aye.
Legal.
Aye.
Motion passes. 6E, we have a motion to approve the employee handbook for the specialized professional staff, including benefits and salary increases for the 26-27 school year. Can we have a motion, please?
Kotwal so moved.
Poland, second.
Would you like to give just a brief explanation? I know that we made a change in the description here, and just so that people are up to date.
So we have approximately 20 members of the non-union ESP group. Most work in the district office and have specialized or technical positions. A lot work in the business services office, but in other positions as well. We also have a few non-union ESP that work in our buildings. Most of the items in the handbook have to do with areas of like items that this group was interested in having enhancements around. A lot of it had to do with longevity and increasing, let's say, the number of vacation days after 20 or so years, increasing or the number of like buyback opportunities of vacation days, again, based on longevity. There was also a name change recommendation. So I would say those were the largest features of the non-union ESP group.
Mark, can you just remind me, are these 12-month employees?
Most of our 12-month employees, I think a few might be 10-month.
Correct.
I think 2 are 10-month.
Correct.
And then, so all of these are the same, whether they're 10-month or, like, so let's say 15 days vacation. So
The 10-month employees don't have the two, campus safety supervisors don't have vacation days. So they are working the teacher school days. So they're different. They don't have access to the vacation days.
are those hourly employees or no?
I don't. Yeah.
So,
That entire group would be considered hourly for like Fair Labor Standards Act.
Correct.
and then, so per that, are they earning, 1 hour of PTO for every 40 hours they work? Are they earning 1 hour of PTO for every 40 hours they worked? I don't know if education is different, but as part-time employees per law that I think came into effect in January of 2024, employees, part-time hourly employees.
No,
are
they're not. They're full-time school year employees, and so they get.
I just want to
their-
make sure we're in compliance with. what
Yes, they get
we need to
their
be.
sick days, and then they get their personal days in there.
Okay, as long as we're in compliance.
Mm-hmm.
I was just double checking.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Poland.
Aye.
Simpson.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Deschmok.
Aye.
Legal.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Motion passes. Board comments and events. I'll just make a reminder and repeat what Carol sent out to all of us. If anyone has not, and I'll admit I have not yet, completed your economic interest statement. Now, this is the week to do it. You have to have it before the May 1st. So, and there's financial penalties if you don't. So as a board member, we all have to do that. So just as a friendly reminder to do that. Anyone else have comments, events you attended?
Wait, where are we?
Okay. ISB report, we did have our division meeting this month, and it went well. It had a last minute change in the speaker, but it turned out to be a really nice event and a really good learning opportunity. So I appreciate those that joined us on that. We said no CEDAW report. We have some future agenda items, including now the one agenda item next month for the board policy.
Yeah, so I have a future agenda item for discussion. And just to be clear, I understand that we're going to be developing a policy committee at some point, but we don't have one right now. So I'm, at a snail pace going through and seeing, I would like to see 7:260 up for discussion in the next agenda.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So we are going into executive session. Board will convene in closed session to discuss employment of employees, 5 ILCS 120/2C1. And when we come out, there's nothing on the agenda for any action items. So we'll end our action items at this point in time. So can I have a motion to convene in closed session to discuss employment of employees, 5 ILCS 120/2C1?
Deshmukh so moved. Deshmukh second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Simpson.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Deschmok.
Aye.
Legal.
Aye.
Cotwall.
Aye.
Poland.
Aye.
Okay. And for the rest of you, good night.